Whoa, hello Riven mains and Yasuo mains alike, Way of Life Esports. I'm the Nightwing, coming at you guys with another League of Legends video. As per the 2015 EULCS finals with Fnatic and Origin going to 5 games, every single finals basically not that year has actually went to 3 1s and 3 0s. It has been 4 long years since EU was graced with a best of 5 in the finals that was as good as this final. And I know people are going to basically underrate how good this finals actually was. Kudos to Fnatic. They played their hearts out. They all played really well. And I really do feel like it's just the difference in super teams this year with the premier regions. Now, if you count the 4 premier regions that everybody looks at, LCS, LEC, LCK, and LPL, 3 of the major regions from that, yes, NA, LCS, major region, XD, every single super team won back-to-back splits, and if you want to count IG at least won spring. So the super teams took up almost 90% of the titles this year. I don't know how people consider Fun plus Phoenix a super team. I don't really know in the realm of where you want to really consider them, but the fact that a bulk of the titles this year came from super teams is insane, and you really saw Cloud9 and Fnatic really try to challenge them, and kudos to them. They weren't really super teams, but they were good in their own right and really did give their super teams in the region a run for their money. And let's go over this series. So coming into the series after last week's reverse sweep, Fnatic really wanted revenge. You heard it over Twitter, you heard it over the LEC teasers. G2 wanted to obviously still prove that they were the best team in EU. My boys, the hashtag G2 Army. Game 1 kicks off relatively how you would think it would. Fnatic come off with a strong lead. Their compositions are relatively the same. You get Hylissang on his support Shin for a number of games after that, but Fnatic easily, in my opinion, easily win a Game 1. There was a bit back and forth in the Game 1. Whipple on that Karma top, you know, really actually has been putting in work. It's really weird that people have looked at the Karma as of like this basic pick where if you see it, you lose. And I've seen Fnatic play a lot better than even some Korean teams. Game 2 is typical G2 fashion. They completely just ass blast Fnatic. It's not even a game worth talking about. Basically, that game that they played in Game 2 was pretty much the same game that they played against them when they first fought together. Basically against each other in the spring match. Remember when Reckless picked Jinx? And yeah, it was pretty much basically just like that match. Game 2 was a complete shellacking by G2. They completely run away with the game. Game 3, Fnatic go with the scaling composition that they're kind of known for. They go for the Jax top lane, which really is a big factor in the series as the reason why this went their way. Hylissang pulls out the support Shin. The support Shin really coming back, obviously, in these later few weeks of the playoffs. Obviously, G2 had a composition of their own that, whereas, you know, you have Caps on the Sylas. He was looking really shaky in the games that I was watching. I was like, what is going on with him? He's just not playing the same way he did, actually. And you have to factor in, today, I really did feel like Nemesis was the better mid laner. I had talked about Nemesis being the second best mid laner, basically, of the LEC, and today he pretty much proved that he can almost be the best mid laner. I remember watching the Fnatic live stream in which where he was talking about he can be the best mid laner, and after watching these last few weeks, you definitely see it in that he at one point could be considered the best mid laner. But you still have to give that edge towards Caps, and Caps, even though he wasn't playing at the level that we know he can play at, he did play really well, and obviously the bot lanes were going back and forth. Game 3, Fnatic get the upper hands with a few picks, and they get the Baron, and they obviously close it out. It bridges the gap 2-1. Game 4 is pretty much an era of mistakes from Fnatic. You have this point in the game in which Wonders Aurelia dives them, where basically he overextends to the point where Reckless could get the kill, misplays, and then after that, then he dies. Then basically at that point in the game, G2 get the Baron. and then they win the game, and then you gotta queue up the silver scrapes. Then you get to Game 5. Game 5 was relatively close for what it is, and you have to factor in that I think the Orin pick will be heavily criticized amongst the Fnatic fans, but you have to factor in the Orin pick works up until a certain point. I don't feel like they should have went for the Orin pick. I would have liked if they went for something that they won a game on at least. I think that banning out the Jax was a smart thing on G2's side. I think that if the pick you are saving for was Orin, kind of makes me feel like, oh wow, you were really saving for that. But the Orin pick wasn't really the problem. Yeah, it got solo killed in lane, but he also got a solo kill himself, so it kind of balanced out that way. I feel like the Broxa played not at his greatest today. He made a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes of his own, but overall I feel like the series was pretty good. And looking at this series ahead of Worlds, you have to factor in that how can these teams actually thoroughly improve from what they've actually gone through. With that being said, I feel like the teams' macro has been a lot better. I feel like Fnatic's macro is a lot better. G2's macro is more or less so kind of banking on their opponents, making mistakes to get their macro going, which is interesting. But in certain games, they've shown they can have good macro where they just completely dumpster you in 19 minutes. Now, the key factor into Game 5 was the Syndra pick. Remember, we saw that Syndra pick against basically, you know, SKT. That's how they won their Game 5. And basically, they played the Syndra with the Thresh, and Mickey X and Hylissang were both star performers this series, both the two best supports obviously in the league. But Persis Syndra was left and right, you know, getting kills, getting fed, able to even one-shot, you know, Nemesis' Akali and Hylissang's Shen. And you also have to factor in that when you look at certain plays around the game where Fnatic were getting their early game aggression, then the Lee Sin pick in certain games made sense to a certain point. But I do feel like that when you're picking champions like Lee Sin for people like Broxa, they need to have an early game impact bigger than what they had. Usually games like that where the Lee Sin goes even don't really add up. We saw games where Jankos had the Sejuani, and I felt like he didn't play as well today, but still played good enough to the point where it was good enough. Now, Jankos obviously won the MVP, and with this being one of the best EU finals ever, probably the, I would still say the Origin Fnatic final was a little bit better, based off the fact that, you know, there was a lot more in the games that I per se liked over than the teams. But I do feel like that G2 and Fnatic this time around really played out extremely well. You saw it on the player cams. Reckless was absolutely just devastated. The whole entire team was devastated. Kudos to Bwipo for, you know, giving out the post-game interview with Laurel. She's so pretty, but, you know, it takes a lot to do that, and I have mad respect for that. And Fnatic is a worthy opponent for G2. And going into this game, I really thought that G2 were just going to 3-1. But little did I know, the 200 IQ Nightwing, Fnatic were going to pull it out. And yes, I was thoroughly surprised at the series. I'm glad my boys won 2 back-to-back splits, but it goes to show you how strong super teams can be. And what I want to say before I close out the video is the fans of Fnatic shouldn't be actually, you know, it's going to hurt today, it's going to hurt tomorrow, but you have to factor in that you're a team basically without superstars in certain areas, and you got to finals and you almost beat the team with, you know, superstars, and you played your hearts out, and you should go home with your head held up high. And basically EU sending 2 great teams to Worlds, and that's pretty much the basis of what it is. And that's literally something that you obviously have to factor in, that this is going to be a series that a lot of people are going to watch, and it's something that a lot of players are going to actually have to go over and review and see how they are actually going to punish G2 and Fnatic, because they have really good early games. And I do feel like that Fnatic and G2 can take games off the Chinese teams. I feel like they can take games off the Korean teams with their really good early game, and they have competent enough players to actually win these games. So, yep. With that being said, we had a great best of 5, and that's pretty much the great thing. Obviously, Perks got his 1,000 kill with Jankos. You know, you have a big Game 3. Game 5 starts up with kills in every lane. Both Fnatic and G2 locked down a spot at the World Championship stage prior to today's series, but G2 now holds Europe's first seed as the Summer Split champs. Fnatic will fight for the 2nd seed during the LEC Regional Qualifier, which kicks off on September 13th. So, yeah. See you guys later. Like, comment, subscribe. Most of all, enjoy. The Nightwing Wave Life Esports is signing out. Peace. We had a great best of 5, and yes, hashtag G2 Army. We won both splits. So happy for the boys after going through a lot of turmoil last year with the bot lane that they had. But Fnatic really did give it to G2, and you know, both teams played their hearts out, and you know, it just sucks that obviously only one of them can win. But hey, it's the nature of competition at the end of the day. But G2's creative picks made the difference, and what made the difference for Fnatic is their better in-game decision making at various points, but their little. But the mistakes that they make are going to cost them, because G2 is going to punish anything that they can. I'll see you guys later. I'm Nightwing. Wave Life Esports is signing out. Peace.
Hi there, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more stuff.
Yeah, thank you.